It's past midnight on a school night, 4 kids sleeping, perhaps even dreaming, when the mother suddenly awakes them unwittingly. Here comes BCW, want a child to do, except scream, "Mom!" while taken from her arms. His heart begins pounding, his brother and sisters crying. He looks around with thoughts profound. Want a child to think, heart and mind out of sync. Is this a dream or simply a heartless scheme? Barely able to hear his mother's words, he must adhere. Take care of your brother and look after your sisters. He is forced to comply, unable to say goodbye. Want a child to feel, accept pain that may not heal. Want a child to say, as he is being taken away. Within a matter of minutes, he is taken past the Brooklyn limits. How a child to react, not knowing when he'll go back. As he closes his eyes, his emotions temporarily dies. However, when faced with reality, this child is inside me.
Used to stutter, used to stutter. Now on the booth with the fruits and I'm...
My name is Ed Diego, and I was born here in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Hospital. And right behind me here is the home where I was taken away from my mom at the age of 6. And this is where, from my perspective, that life had changed for me in a big way. My sister's father bought this place to fix it up. The county was selling it back then to people who want to restore the area. And so with that said, it had no electricity, it had no power, there was no running water. Most of the time we just took our showers in the bucket, we used the bathroom in the bucket, and so we were just smelling just like pee and everything like that. And I was always sick, I was constantly sick. I had fevers and stuff like that. And we would walk right up the street to school. I believe it was the end of my kindergarten, beginning 1st grade, I believe it was. And the teacher basically noticed and sensed that we were not living in favorable conditions, malnourished, not smelling well. This area was just filled with abandoned buildings, lots of drugs. From my perspective, I just went wherever my mom went. We would go to different buildings, holes in the walls. She would leave me in a section of a place while she goes do what she was doing. One morning, very, very early in the morning, I would give about 2 or 3 a.m., very, very early in the morning. All we saw was lights outside, banging on the door. It was BCW, which is the Bureau of Child Care Workers. And they came and took my brother, my twin brother, my 2 sisters. At the time, I was about 6. My sister was 3, and the other one was 2. And I just remember everyone screaming, crying. We're not knowing what was happening, why were we being abducted, from my perspective. And the only thing remembering is my mom telling me to take care of my brother and look after my 2 sisters. From that point, that was it. I couldn't look back. We haven't been back to this place. We were taken elsewhere to foster carers and group homes from that point forward. I know in my heart, I just felt like I was being given up. In my heart, yes, I can say that it was a bit of abandonment, but more so I just felt let down. I just felt given up on. I just felt like I'm being handed over to strangers. We didn't have much, we didn't do much, but it was all I knew at 5 years old. It was all I knew life to be, was living here in this environment, being with my mom, following her guidance. It was love to what I knew love was at that point. So to be taken away just so abruptly was just really shocking. And it just takes a long time to heal from that.
Hate it, see me, never saying hi, hi, hi. I'm greater, elevator, later, take me to the sky, sky. Hate it, see me, never saying hi, hi, hi. I'm greater, elevator, later, take me to the sky, sky.
behind me is, this building here is 1701 St. Peter's in the Bronx, New York. This used to be the boys group home that I landed upon after being taken away from my mom in Brooklyn. I was put into a foster home with my brother and my 2 sisters. Then they eventually separated my 2 sisters from my brother and I. And my brother and I went to another foster home. And then I believe it was another foster home after that before we landed here. I remember being here from 7 to around 11 years old. So for 4 years, this is where I was placed. And being here has just been a lot of ups and downs, but more downs than anything that I can remember. During my stay here, the way that the group home runs and operates, that the kids stay here 24/7. So this is where we live, this is where we eat and breathe, and we would go to school. So I went down to PS 106 till about 5th grade. And the way that it works is that the staff would be on a rotation. So you have different shifts. So you have the morning shift, you have the evening shift, and the overnight shift. So it was like 3 shifts of staff that would come in and out. One of the staff that I remember from this group home was Junior, was his name. I don't know his last name, but he was about yay tall, about almost 6 feet, kind of light skinned a bit, but really cool guy. He was always good with me. I remember him taking us to go bowling, to go swimming. We would walk down East Tremont to go to the bowling alley, or we'd go the other way to go to the pool. But that's who would stay with us. But during my stay here, there would be other kids that was a little bit older than I. And for people who know me and I've shared, this is where I got beat up quite a bit. So this is where I first experienced what it meant to bleed through both of my nostrils. This is where I experienced what it meant to be robbed. We would get allowance as we do our chores. And so every time I get my allowance, it was time to go do a home visit, because at this time now, they allowed us to go visit my mom by Madison Square Garden at the family's, it was like a family center. So they would wait for us by the train station on Sevilla Avenue, and they would rob us of our money, of our allowance that we had. So we would have nothing to really go down there and to have anything in our pockets. One kid kept bothering me, but I kept saying I got the power. There was a song that came out that said I got the power. And he wanted to try to, for lack of better words, beat that out of me, because I kept saying I got the power. And he kept hitting me. Even when I started crying, I kept saying I got the power. And then the staff would finally come in. But they didn't really step in and broke up a lot of the fights. They kind of just let us work it out, which I don't think was a good idea. The one thing I liked about the group home, in a sense, was that they always had meals. And this is where I began to gain a lot of weight, is because I came from a place from Brooklyn where we wasn't eating much. We were really malnourished, to a place here where there was meals on the clock. And so we would eat quite a bit, kind of stuff our face, not eating slow. But when we came here as well, we were only speaking Spanish at this time. So we had to learn English and all that stuff. But this is where we started to become more of an issue with eating, becoming obese, and we had to overcome that. I had to really learn that I'm the only one left that can really provide for myself. I can't rely on the staff here. I couldn't rely on the other kids here. My brother wasn't here. So in a sense, I had to figure things out pretty early and just see what's going to work and what's not going to work. I had to learn the system, and I began to learn it pretty fast to make it work for myself. And what I mean by learn the system is understanding the chores, understanding the pay, understanding if you do certain things, you can get certain things. For instance, I wanted to see my brother in the psychiatric ward, so I just pretended I needed to go to the psychiatric ward, so they sent me anyway, and they sent me back saying he doesn't belong here. So just understanding how the system was working, I started understanding that. I didn't smile much. Most people who know me today, all they see is me smiling all day, every day, all the time. But growing up, being in these group homes, there was not a single smile on my face. Not one. It was always a mean-looking face. It was a frown. I was very lonely, very, I guess you could say, depressed in a lot of ways, very sad and broken, just very heartbroken for the whole thing that was happening around me.
West Philly girl, born to the heart of it, with tears, struggle and pain, and burying my closest friends, all was a part of it. I could've chose to be part of it, but I wanted better. You know what life worth living, no matter what happens, yo, I gotta stay driven, cause he died on the cross for my sins forgiven. I didn't choose this life. This life chose me. God for me in the womb, he chose me. Could've died at 9, but he saved me. Yeah, that fire could've took me. My mother almost buried me. Just a thought really shook me.
So behind me is Sevilla Cottage, which is part of the Leek and Watts campus, the group home. We were separated at this point, my brother and I. I was put into this cottage, which is more for the older boys, and my brother was put into Cobb Cottage right across the street, which was for the younger boys. At this point in our life, we started to grow apart because now we were living separately, growing up separately. And the challenges I faced with the older kids was a bit more challenging for me it forced me to grow up quicker. So I had to understand their way of thinking. I had to understand what they were going through at age 19, 20, 21, to give you a reference, and I was only 11. It really hindered my self-esteem because they would walk around, boys being boys, opening their towels, showing me what they have when I don't have because I'm just a little boy. They would pick on me. They would say lots of different things. They always wanted to watch football and the sports, and I was just young, wanted to watch cartoons, which I couldn't. So not only was I picked on, not only was I teased, I was also beat up a couple of times here as well. I've got a big scar on my elbow. I almost lost my arm because when the staff pushed me down the stairs here, it scraped, and all they did was put a Band-Aid over it, but didn't take care of it. And eventually turned green and pussy, and the doctor said I almost lost my arm. I was always in this cottage during my stay here at Leek and Watts. At 13, the reason why I ran away is because my mom passed away. August 30th, 1993, I called home and to my sister's father to ask for my mom. And I was told that my mom passed away. At that moment, it was very shocking for me. It was hard to understand to hear over the phone to a 13-year-old boy that my mom died. And I ran from Sevilla Cottage, across campus, to this pool area to tell my brother, who was swimming at the time, that our mom had just passed away. It was very difficult for me to tell him that. I didn't know I would have the strength. It was hard for me to even acknowledge it, and then to relate it to another human being and to see his reaction really tore me up inside. At that point, I lost all hope. All through this time, when I was taken from my mom in Brooklyn, to putting in foster homes to the group homes, to 1701 St. Peter's, to here, I always had a hope that my mom was gonna get me. She was going to get me out, she was going to take custody of me, and I was going to be with my mom. Well, when she passed away, all hope had just went away. So at that point, I was no longer going to be willing to stay within this institution. So I ran away to my aunt, and at that point, she went to court and got custody of me. After Yonkers, I ran away and I came here to my aunt's house. And she had an apartment here, an apartment 5C, and the court eventually gave her custody of my brother and I. And this was at the age of 13, right after my mom passed away. So this is where I began to go to school. This is where I went to high school in Urban Peace Academy on 120th Street and First Avenue. And this is where, back in 1993 to 1999 is when I was here before I went off to college. So back in those days, it was very much a lot of drug dealing right out of here. There was a lot of drug dealing out of here. There was a big block fight where people ganged up and beat people up. So eventually my aunt ended up leaving because my uncles all got jumped in 1995. I was going to school. I met the next door neighbor here on 210 East 117th Street. His name was Mario. I met Mario a few times as he was coming home in and out, but I never really got to know him until one day my aunt said something really bad to me about my mom. My mom's already gone. So I'm a 13, 14-year-old kid at the time when she said it, and it really hurt my heart. So I came downstairs, I went on the staircase that was over there, and just sat there and just cried. I was hurt. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do in my life. So I was just crying. His wife came home, she saw me, she asked me what's the matter. She brought me upstairs, started talking to me. Mario comes home after work, sees me upstairs in his house, and begins to talk to me. From that moment on, we had the most incredible conversation where I just opened up. And that was the first time I felt like I've even opened up to someone and just shared, this is how I felt, this is what's going on in my life, this is what I want to do, and just was brutally honest, just raw honest with him. And Mario became a good mentor to me. He became a dad later on. He's been in my life for so long. So in 1995, after the whole gang fight was going on here, my aunt picked up and they moved to Philadelphia. And my cousin and I decided we were just going to stay here in the apartment. So the apartment was given to her from housing, from Section 8, and she just never told them that she left. So my cousin and I just stayed in there at the age of 15, and I would come down the stairs, I would go to school in the morning, get my attendance, come back over here with Mario, kind of go do some electrical work off the books, making about $350 a week, just to be able to survive and do what we got to do. So at this point is where I felt like I'm now on my own. The only great memory that I have of my mom is how excited she was when I did well in school. That resonated with me all throughout my life, was to go to school. School was the only thing that I knew would get me out of my circumstances. So one night, Mario asked me, do I want to stay upstairs and forget all my friends out here, or do I want to hang out with the friends out here in the street and not go upstairs again? Mario had something I always wanted. He had a family, a wife, a kid that he loved. I saw that. That's what I wanted, was love. So I told him, I'm going to forget my friends out here in the streets, and I'm going to continue to come up here. And at that point, he knew I wanted to do something, so he helped guide me to go to school. And I always wanted to go to school. Whenever I did, it was school, 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 school. So I would go to school in the morning, get my attendance, go to work, come back, and just get my schoolwork from some friends and just study. And eventually I graduated as valedictorian of my high school. How does one describe all the things that I've went through, all the things that I've experienced? I've always felt like there wasn't a God. It was challenging to believe that such a God would allow me to be born in such adversity, to be born in such conditions, to be in the group homes, to experience what I experienced. It was very hard to believe that there was a God that would allow all that to happen to me. But as I look back, and when Mario came into my life after I was crying and didn't know what to do, at that point, I really felt God's hand come in. And I said, okay, all of this that happened was for a reason. You know, the scripture talks about that God determines the time and place of everything. He also talks about in Jeremiah 29:11 that He has a plan for us to give us a future, to prosper, not to harm us. But when I was going through these situations, it felt difficult. It didn't feel that. But then I later saw that with the mentor that came in my life at the right time, as I was hanging out with these wrong guys. When I made that decision, these guys got arrested a week later, and I wasn't. You know, it was like being in the wrong crowd, in the wrong time, the wrong place. I could have been arrested. It could have been on my record. I wouldn't have the job I have today. And then being in Mario being in my life, it helped me to see that, man, God really is looking out for me. But He had me go through these situations so I can develop the strong character that I have today, that I can utilize to be able to support the family that I now am blessed to have. You know, everything happens for a reason. It was all connected. It was not just sporadic events. I've now seen how it all just connects together, that led me to really, really want a relationship with God, and to be able to help so many other teens, so many other people who grew up in my situation, that now I can relate to them in a heart level. You know, I can be real with them. I can tell them, you know, there is hope. God is there. We just need to fight. We need to persevere, and we need to take responsibility for our lives to want to do something better.